In today's episode, I am going to remove the gearbox and change the clutch. I'm going to see if I can do some more diagnosing with the death rattle. It's either just chain tensioner that needs replacing, which I've got, or it needs a whole new chain, which is going to be a different story. And then I'm going to see if I can get on to replacing some of the leaky O-rings and gaskets kind of all over the engine. I need to take the gearbox off, but the problem is that the crane is holding it on this eyelet which is on the gearbox. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the whole thing down. I've attached a bracket, it's just a bracket I had laying around, and there's a redundant hole in here, and then I'll be able to remove the transmission and I shall pop that on the transmission jack, and then I can get all of that away, and then we can take a look inside the gearbox and have a look at the clutch. Right, so that's all the bolts out of the transmission now, so I'm kind of hoping that this time around I actually can prise it apart. Ah, that's more like it. Look at that, just popped straight off. Absolutely no effort whatsoever. I mean, obviously I've done this wrong, because I don't know how I'm now going to get this out of there. Oh, this is what happens when you're a complete noob. And you don't think of, well, you don't really think of anything, let alone everything. I'm going to try and spin the whole thing out. I'm kind of half on grass, half on some slabs here. Not ideal. Oh, there we go. Just strap this on. Okay, and there we have it. The gearbox is now separated from the engine. So this is the clutch here. I'm going to take this plate off, pull away all of this, and then I'll take the flywheel off, because I want to see what the condition of the rear main seal is behind, because I actually do have a replacement. I mean, it's pretty mucky in there, if you can see all of that. So I've got a new release bearing. I mean, that sounds, don't know if you're supposed to be able to hear it like that or not. So this is cool. Right, well, I'm just going to work out how you take these off. I'm pretty sure it must be these bolts around the outside, and I'll just start peeling layers off. I'm going to have to just lower this down gently onto that mat, because I need to take these bolts off, but because it's just hanging, you don't have any proper stable leverage. Oh no. Well, how do you stop that from happening? If I turn that, the whole thing turns. Okay, so apparently you don't need to kind of lock it in place, the clutch at least. I think you do with the flywheel when you want to take that off. But I'll deal with that when I come to it. But apparently you can just hit these clutch bolts with an impact wrench and they should just come off. So let's try that. Oh, lovely. Oh. This is the first clutch I've ever looked at, and to me that's a worn clutch. On some of these bits here, it's completely flush with the surface of the clutch, so that looks to me like it's pretty worn. This is an LUK clutch, and the replacement I have is an LUK. I'm going to quickly go and grab the new one, and I'm going to compare it, and then we can see what the differences are. So right here, my right hand is the replacement clutch, and here on the left is the one that I've just pulled out. Now hopefully you can see the difference there. That is night and day different. So you can just see how much more material is left in each of these holes. Actually try not to touch it, and you know, you can still see all of the individual grooves, whereas on this one it's flat as a pancake, isn't it? Let's look at the two. So I think my original diagnosis and the whole reason the gearbox was coming off in the first place was for a clutch change. I wasn't sure if it was going to be the slave cylinder, because they can go a bit dodgy on these cars, but when I looked at mine, it's not leaking, there's nothing wrong with it. So the only other thing it could have been really was the clutch, and it looks as though I was correct, which is nice. Also, how are you liking my new workshop, my garden path? I have got a little bit of patio space down there, and you're probably thinking I'm completely insane to do this here, but just through here is where the car sits. Now, I had problem enough getting that engine on the engine crane up this tiny little bit of curb. You can see where I've scratched everything by myself, pulled it just up a curb all the way down here, kind of half squeezed it through the gate, and it landed here. Now I would take it all the way down there, but this is heavy as hell, and these wheels are at risk of sinking right into the grass when I get down there. So I'm doing this here. I know it's not ideal. We'll get a workshop soon, don't worry. We'll get a workshop, we're building up to it. I also want to see if the impact wrench trick works on these bolts as well. Nope. Damn it. So what I've managed to do is I've managed to get one of the bell housing bolts. I've got this odd length of chain that I had laying around, and I've attached the bolt back into where it would ordinarily go, and then I'm just kind of hooking the chain on one of these dowel pins, and that seems to provide just enough strength for me to actually get these bolts off by holding the flywheel in place. You have to make do with what you've got. There's probably some kind of fancy tool for this. And now hopefully I can go back to the impact wrench. Delightful. Oh. Oh. So that's a genuine mini flywheel, so I imagine this has been on there since new. And you can see if I turn it over there, there's a load of oil. So that says to me, and you can kind of see it there, that this rear main seal does indeed need replacing like I thought, which is great because I've got a new one. Great, right, okay, so now I am going to put this on an engine stand now that I can get in all of these bolts. I've got a load of clearance. So I've just got the engine up in the air, trying to get it on this new engine stand that I've bought, and it's just a load of things that I never thought about. The first main problem is I don't have any bolts that are long enough. This kind of head on the engine stand, that's a long old bit there that the bolt has to pass through, and there's nowhere near enough thread on the end to then go into the engine block. So I'm going to have to go to the shop and buy some bolts or order some online. Okay, it's now the next day. It's 0 degrees and I managed to get some bolts. So I've bolted this head of the stand to the engine, and now all I'm going to do is lift it up on the crane and then place this in there. Okay, and so I think that is a success. There's slack in the chains, and I think this seems pretty sturdy. It's not going anywhere. Fantastic. Right, I'm gonna get this moved down there now, so I actually do have a bit more space today to work on this engine. The thing I really like about this is it's very hard to see. Hold on, wait, I'll show you. The thing I love about this is the height. I didn't really think about it. This is perfect. You can work on this standing up without having to break your back, which is absolutely delightful. Okay boys, here she is. This is quite a cool little setup, if I do say so myself. I mean, it's basically a workshop. I couldn't think of what more you'd need. Maybe a roof and maybe some heating. So what I have that I want to put on, so this is a replacement rear main seal, so that will go in there on the crank, but I'll probably do that, to be honest, just before I put the gearbox back on. In here is a new exhaust gasket, so I'm going to clean up all of this and then put a new exhaust gasket on. I've got a new oil filter, I've got the crank shaft position sensor O-ring, I've got a new sump plug, got the new auxiliary belt. This is a new sump gasket. In here is the new chain tensioner, so I'll be fitting that. I've also got an oil cooler O-ring and a new gasket for the oil filter housing. Okay, so I've just had a chance to look around the engine and just kind of gauge its condition. You know, in terms of over oil leaks, there's not too much, but you can see that there's just kind of generally a lot of oil that's been splattered around. The main areas that I need to look at, so this was where the starter motor goes, and you can see where there's just been loads of oil that's been coming through there. It's all around here on the front face of here, and so I do think that this is all related to this main seal, which is going to need replacing. The exhaust over time has been letting stuff out. You can just see all of this dirt here, and you can see where it's been dripping out of there. But the other thing, looking all around the top of the engine, looks to me as if we're getting quite a bit of oil actually come out of the rocker head there. So I'm wondering if I should just get a new rocker cover gasket. I think I should, because I've got the engine out here, and just for the probably little amount of effort it costs, and a new one isn't very expensive, but you can just kind of see all around where it looks like there's just been oil seeping out. And then the only other thing that I can see here is there's actually oil, you can see dripping out there, of the intake manifold. This is where the throttle body attaches to. So I'm going to take this off and clean it, because I've also got the throttle body to clean. And then once I've done all those gaskets and seals, I think really I'm just going to kind of wipe it all down, spruce it up, get a load of the gunk off, and then see what it looks like after. And I have just noticed that obviously now the engine stand is being bolted into the sump, so I'm not going to be able to do the sump gasket or take the sump out until it's back off this stand and now on the floor again. I kind of wish that I'd thought of that before, to be honest, because I wanted to take the sump off and check if there was any debris or anything in there. And one other thing, this is the MAP hose, manifold absolute pressure hose. This I pulled off a couple of videos ago when I was moving stuff about, but you can see where this has had, I don't know how many repairs, and that's snapped off of there. So looks like I'm going to have to probably get a new piece of tubing, because you can see the plastic snapped and there's all this gunk, and a new one of these sensors. Okay, so I'm just going to start with the oil filter housing and the heater. Just seems the least intimidating part to get going with. So I've just hit my first problem already. I've taken 2 bolts out, I've hit a problem. I thought I had a socket large enough for the oil filter, but I don't. I've got a 32mm. It turns out this is a 36mm. So I've just ordered a new socket that will come tomorrow. I have, at the same time, I just ordered a new gasket for this. That should also come tomorrow. I am going to take off this part of the throttle body, see what's going on with all that oil dripping. I'm going to take this hose off. Okay, so you can see in there all of that oil is just coming out of the this part of the intake after the throttle body. So do I need one of these as well? Is that what I need? Probably. I've just been trying to look for one of those throttle body seals that goes on there, this green part, and I can't really find them for sale individually. There are lots of them. What's happening in my hat? There are lots of them that are as part of a supercharger service kit. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy a supercharger service kit, and I'm going to service the supercharger, because I've got the engine out. I've got the engine on a stand. It does seem a little bit crazy not to do a load of this work whilst the engine is like this and the weather's okay. I've got such easy access. I'm never going to get this again with this car. And then I was thinking, you know what, as well, the death rattle on this car is pronounced, to say the least, and lots of people online are saying that the chain tensioner needs replacing, when the death rattle is kind of only as bad as when you turn the car on for the first time. It will die down. Most people are saying that's the chain tensioner, but mine doesn't disappear. It rattles and rattles and rattles, and which makes me think that there's probably a larger problem than just the chain tensioner. So I think what I'm going to do as well, you know, this is a restoration. You know, I haven't got thousands and thousands to spend on this, but I may as well just do the job right. So I'm going to get a chain kit as well, so new chain, and we shall get some of this done. I've got no idea how to do it. I've got no idea how involved the job it is. Hopefully it is something that I can do. I'm sure it will be, especially if the engine's out like this. And then, you know, I'm going to rest easy knowing that this engine has been properly loved and cared for. So I mean, if you could subscribe and maybe give this video a thumbs up, that would be great, because this is all going to need paying for at some point. So that's going to help me out into the future. If you could do that, that would be fantastic. Thank you. So what I'm going to do, because I've got a load of parts coming, I am going to pause this video here, and I will see you in the next one.